Diana and Victor were the kind of couple that inspired admiration and envy. Married for 8 years, they seemed to have it all: love, success, and a shared vision for the future. Diana, a strikingly beautiful and sharp-witted art curator, spent her days navigating the high-stakes world of galleries and wealthy collectors. Victor, an ambitious tech entrepreneur, had turned his garage project into a thriving startup, becoming a prominent name in the tech industry. Their lives were a whirlwind of glamorous events, spontaneous travel, and whispered conversations about big dreams late at night. Friends marveled at their chemistry. Victor often joked that Diana's sharp intellect kept him grounded, while Diana claimed Victor's optimism gave her the courage to dream bigger. Together, they seemed untouchable. But beneath the surface, subtle fractures began to appear. Victor had been pulling long hours at his company, preparing for a massive acquisition deal. Diana, while supportive, often felt sidelined. Her days grew lonely in their sprawling house, the silence amplified by Victor's absence. To fill the void, Diana poured herself into her work, organizing her most ambitious exhibition yet. It required countless hours of networking, and she found herself spending more time with Alex, a flamboyant and charming art collector who was well known in their social circle. Victor trusted her implicitly, never questioning the late-night meetings or the subtle change in her demeanor. Their love, though real, was being tested by forces neither of them fully understood. Diana and Victor were still smiling for the cameras, still holding hands at charity galas, but cracks were beginning to form. Cracks that, unbeknownst to them, would soon shatter their perfect facade. This was the calm before the storm. Victor had always prided himself on being attuned to the details others overlooked, a skill that had propelled his tech startup to success. Yet, when it came to Diana, he never felt the need to analyze or second-guess. Their relationship was built on trust, or so he thought. It started with small things. Diana, who used to light up when Victor walked through the door, now seemed distracted. She often had her phone in hand, quickly tucking it away when he entered the room. Her laughter felt forced, her excuses rehearsed. "Late night again?" Victor asked one evening as Diana hurriedly put on her heels. "Alex and I are finalizing a deal for the gallery," she replied without meeting his gaze. "It's crucial for the exhibition." Victor nodded, brushing it off. He knew Diana's work demanded flexibility, and Alex had always been a trusted friend, if a bit too charming for Victor's liking. Still, a faint unease began to creep in, a quiet voice in the back of his mind that whispered questions he didn't want to ask. The real turning point came during a rare dinner together. As Diana's phone buzzed repeatedly on the table, Victor noticed her body stiffen. She glanced at the screen, her face briefly betraying something. "Guilt? Panic? Do you need to get that?" Victor asked casually, though his stomach churned. "No, it's nothing," she replied, flipping the phone over and forcing a smile. "Just gallery stuff." That night, after Diana fell asleep, Victor found himself staring at the ceiling, replaying the past few weeks in his mind. Her unexplained absences, the constant texts, the way her eyes no longer lingered on his the way they used to. Something was wrong. But Victor wasn't the type to act on suspicion alone. If there was an explanation, he wanted to know the truth before confronting her. And so, for the first time in their marriage, Victor allowed doubt to take root. Victor's unease gnawed at him, but he tried to dismiss it as paranoia. Diana was his wife, his partner, the woman he had built a life with. But doubt had a way of digging in, and Victor's curiosity soon turned into an uncontrollable urge for answers. Late one evening, while Diana was still out at another gallery meeting, Victor sat at her desk. Her laptop was open, the screen glowing faintly in the dim light of their study. She'd always been meticulous about keeping her work private. But tonight, Victor noticed she had forgotten to close her email. He hesitated, his finger hovering over the touchpad. The thought of invading her privacy felt wrong, yet the nagging questions wouldn't let him walk away. With a deep breath, he clicked into her inbox. At first, it seemed innocuous, correspondence with gallery clients, updates on the upcoming exhibition. But then a flagged thread caught his eye. The subject line read, "Tonight's plan." Victor's chest tightened as he opened the thread. Inside were several exchanges between Diana and Alex. The tone was light-hearted, teasing, and laced with an intimacy that made Victor's stomach churn. Phrases like, "I can't stop thinking about earlier," and "he won't notice, don't worry," leapt out at him, each word a hammer blow. The final email, sent just an hour ago, made his blood run cold. "Same place as usual. Can't wait to see you." Victor sat frozen, staring at the screen. His heart pounded in his chest, rage and disbelief coursing through him. A part of him still clung to denial, hoping he'd misunderstood. But deep down, he knew this wasn't an innocent misunderstanding. Closing the laptop, he leaned back in the chair, trying to steady his breathing. The truth was there, undeniable and ugly. Diana wasn't just pulling away. She was betraying him. But Victor wasn't one to lash out in anger. No, his mind worked differently. As the shock faded, a cold determination set in. If Diana thought she could outmaneuver him, she didn't know who she was dealing with. Victor spent the following days in a haze, torn between anger, heartbreak, and a strange sense of calm. The emails had shattered his trust, but he knew better than to confront Diana without solid proof. If she could lie so effortlessly, he needed to ensure there was no way for her to twist the truth. He began paying closer attention to her patterns. Diana, ever the perfectionist, had a routine she followed almost religiously. Yet, the cracks in her facade were becoming more evident. She would laugh a little too brightly when explaining her late nights. Her phone would buzz with notifications that she never answered in his presence. And she had become overly affectionate at odd moments, as though compensating for something. One evening, Victor casually mentioned, "I was thinking of stopping by the gallery tomorrow, seeing what's keeping you so busy." Diana froze for a split second, her fork pausing midair. "Oh, that's sweet, but it's probably not the best time. We're finalizing the exhibition setup and it's all chaos. You wouldn't enjoy it." Her response sounded rehearsed, but Victor simply smiled and nodded. "Maybe I'll surprise you one day," he said, watching her closely. She laughed nervously, brushing off the comment, but her unease was palpable. Later that night, as Diana showered, Victor made his move. He knew her phone's passcode, an old anniversary date she likely thought he'd forgotten. Unlocking it, he searched for evidence, his hands trembling as he scrolled through her messages. Alex's name didn't appear in her recent chats, but Victor wasn't surprised. She was too clever to leave anything so obvious. But in her photo gallery, tucked away in a hidden album, he found what he was looking for. Pictures of Diana and Alex at an upscale hotel, their intimacy unmistakable. Victor felt a strange mix of vindication and devastation. The proof was undeniable now. Still, he didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, he deleted the phone's search history, ensuring she wouldn't suspect a thing. For Victor, the betrayal was no longer just a personal wound. It had become a puzzle to solve, a game to win. He knew Diana and Alex were playing him for a fool, but they had underestimated him. He wasn't just going to confront them. He was going to dismantle their lives piece by piece. Victor's nights became a storm of restless planning. He couldn't stop replaying every interaction with Diana, every time Alex had entered their home, laughing and joking as though he weren't systematically dismantling Victor's life. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was humiliating. He decided it was time to stop relying on passive observations. If Diana and Alex wanted to play their games in the shadows, he would drag them into the light. Victor began using resources from his tech company, tools meant for cybersecurity but easily adaptable for surveillance. He placed discreet cameras in their home, focused on areas Diana frequented when she thought she was alone. For weeks, nothing incriminating happened. Victor began to question his actions, until one Thursday afternoon. He received a notification on his phone. Motion detected in the living room. He opened the live feed, his stomach tightening. There, on the couch, sat Diana and Alex. At first, their conversation seemed innocent, but it quickly shifted. Diana leaned in, her hand resting on Alex's knee, their voices growing quieter. Victor watched in stunned silence as Diana kissed Alex, their embrace growing more heated. His mind screamed at him to stop watching, but he couldn't tear his eyes away. They were in his home, on his couch, desecrating the life he thought they'd built together. The footage cut deep into Victor's soul, but it also ignited a fire within him. This wasn't just betrayal. It was audacity, carelessness, a complete disregard for the vows they'd exchanged. Victor didn't cry. He didn't rage. Instead, he closed the video feed and began documenting everything. He saved the clips to multiple drives, ensuring he had undeniable evidence. For the first time in weeks, his path forward felt clear. Diana and Alex had destroyed something sacred, but Victor wasn't going to let them walk away unscathed. They thought they could humiliate him, but they hadn't considered the depth of his resolve, or the cruelty he was capable of when pushed to his limits. Victor's revenge was no longer an abstract idea. It was a blueprint, and the execution was about to begin. Victor sat in the silence of his study, staring at the saved footage. The weight of the betrayal pressed down on him like a crushing boulder. He poured himself a glass of whiskey, the amber liquid trembling slightly in his hand. The urge to confront Diana was overwhelming, but he knew it wasn't the right time. A confrontation would only give her and Alex the chance to manipulate the narrative. Instead, he let the storm rage within him. He thought of every moment they'd shared. Their wedding day, their late-night talks, the promises they'd made to each other. It was all a lie now, tainted by her actions. The love he once felt for Diana now burned with the acidic sting of betrayal. Victor smashed the glass against the desk, the sound echoing through the empty room. Shards scattered like his thoughts. Messy, sharp, and impossible to ignore. But after the outburst came a chilling calm. He wasn't going to allow himself to be the victim. He wasn't going to simply confront her, hear her excuses, or let her cry her way into forgiveness. No, he was going to make them both pay. Victor spent the next several hours drafting a plan. He didn't just want revenge, he wanted precision. Diana and Alex's betrayal was calculated, so his retribution would be, too. He wrote down every aspect of their lives that he could exploit, every vulnerability they had, every connection he could use against them. By the time dawn broke, Victor was no longer the shattered husband. He was a man on a mission. He looked at himself in the mirror, his reflection hardened, almost unrecognizable. He muttered to himself, "You want to play games? Let's play." And the game began. Victor's revenge started subtly, almost invisibly, like a spider weaving a web around its prey. He needed to strike at the foundation of Diana and Alex's lives before going for the kill. It was no longer enough to catch them in the act. He wanted to dismantle everything they valued, leaving them no place to hide. The first step was positioning himself as an unsuspecting, loving husband. Victor made a point of being more attentive to Diana, showering her with affection and praise. He wanted her to feel safe, unthreatened, so she wouldn't suspect what was coming. He even encouraged her work with Alex, pretending to be impressed by their dedication. Diana responded in kind, her guilt seemingly driving her to be more affectionate. Victor felt disgusted by her touch, but he masked it with a smile. Every kiss, every lingering glance from her, fueled his determination. Meanwhile, Victor turned his focus to Alex. He began gathering every piece of dirt he could find. Leveraging the tools from his tech company, Victor hacked into Alex's personal email, uncovering financial irregularities and a string of inappropriate relationships with women in his professional circles. Alex's public image as a charming, successful art collector was a facade, and Victor intended to shatter it. Victor also started infiltrating Alex's social network. At social events, he made a point of chatting with Alex's colleagues and friends, dropping subtle hints that would sow seeds of doubt. "Alex is so busy these days," Victor would say with a smile. "I hope he's not overextending himself. You know how risky these gallery deals can be." By the time Victor's groundwork was in place, he had meticulously constructed a framework for their downfall. But he wasn't done. He needed a stage. A moment where everything would come crashing down, where Diana and Alex's betrayal would be exposed to everyone they cared about. Victor decided the perfect moment would be their upcoming anniversary party, an event Diana had been planning for weeks. She wanted it to be a celebration of their love, a testament to their life together. Victor saw it as something else entirely, the perfect trap. As the date approached, Victor prepared the final pieces of his plan, knowing it wouldn't just be an anniversary party. It would be the night Diana and Alex's lives unraveled. The days leading up to the anniversary party were deceptively calm. Diana was immersed in planning, choosing flowers, arranging caterers, and designing invitations. She seemed happy, almost radiant, oblivious to the storm Victor was preparing to unleash. Victor played his role flawlessly. He praised her efforts, feigned excitement, and even made suggestions to help perfect the event. Every moment he spent by her side felt like swallowing broken glass, but he endured it, knowing the payoff would be worth it. In the meantime, Victor continued tightening the noose around Alex. He anonymously leaked some of the financial discrepancies he'd uncovered to influential figures in the art world, ensuring whispers about Alex's shady dealings began to circulate. He also fed damaging information about Alex's past relationships to one of Alex's competitors, a ruthless gallery owner who would seize any opportunity to undermine him. Victor's greatest move, however, was crafting a centerpiece for the anniversary party, a symbolic art installation designed to expose Diana's betrayal. Using his tech skills, he created a digital exhibit that looked like an abstract, modern piece but would transform midway through the evening, revealing damning evidence. The emails, photos, and video footage of Diana and Alex together. The installation was risky, public, dramatic, and impossible to take back once revealed. But Victor wanted it that way. He wanted the betrayal to burn brightly in the minds of everyone they knew. Diana and Alex had humiliated him in private, but he would make their disgrace a spectacle. On the surface, the couple appeared happier than ever, but beneath the facade, Victor's web grew tighter and tighter. Each move he made brought him closer to the moment of reckoning, and Diana remained completely unaware. On the eve of the party, Victor stood in their living room, watching Diana finalize seating arrangements. Her smile was genuine, her laughter soft and melodic. For a brief moment he felt a pang of doubt. Was this the woman he had loved for so many years? Could she really deserve the punishment he was about to deliver? But then he remembered the footage, the lies, the betrayal. The doubt evaporated, replaced by cold resolve. Diana and Alex had made their choices. Tomorrow they would face the consequences. The day of the anniversary party arrived. Their home was transformed into a picturesque venue, filled with warm lighting, elegant decorations, and a carefully curated guest list of friends, colleagues, and influential figures from Diana and Victor's social circles. Diana beamed as she greeted guests, exuding charm and grace. Victor, however, wore a mask of calm detachment. To everyone else, he appeared the doting husband, proud of his wife's efforts and excited to celebrate their milestone. Inside, his heart pounded with anticipation. The moment he had been planning for weeks was finally here. At the center of the living room stood the art installation, a sleek, modern digital display. Diana had introduced it earlier as a symbolic representation of their partnership. Two lives woven together, full of love and creativity, she had said, receiving applause from their guests. She had no idea what was really hidden within. As the evening progressed, Victor made small talk, his eyes darting occasionally to Alex. The man was his usual charming self, laughing and mingling, his confidence unshaken. Diana and Alex exchanged subtle, knowing glances throughout the night, thinking no one noticed. Victor, of course, did. Finally, the time came. Victor tapped his glass to gather everyone's attention. "Thank you all for being here to celebrate Diana and me," he began, his voice steady. "Tonight is about love, trust, and the bonds that hold us together. And, as a tribute to those ideals, I'd like to unveil a special surprise I've prepared." He gestured to the installation. The room quieted as the display flickered to life. At first, it showed abstract images, swirling shapes and vibrant colors that seemed to echo Diana's description of love and creativity. Guests murmured their admiration. Then the colors began to shift, darkening. The shapes became jagged, fragmented. Words started appearing on the screen, Snippets of emails between Diana and Alex. "I can't stop thinking about you. He'll never know." Gasps rippled through the crowd. As the emails faded, images replaced them. Photos of Diana and Alex together, their intimacy undeniable. Finally, the screen played the video footage Victor had captured. The two of them on the couch in his home, kissing passionately. The room erupted. Guests whispered, shocked and horrified. Diana stood frozen, her face pale, her eyes wide with disbelief. Alex stiffened, his confident demeanor crumbling as the weight of the revelation sank in. Victor stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Diana, Alex, I hope you both enjoyed your little secret, but secrets have a way of coming to light." Diana turned to him, tears brimming in her eyes. "Victor, I can explain." "No," he interrupted coldly. "You don't get to explain. You don't get to manipulate your way out of this. Everyone here has seen the truth." The guests began to disperse, muttering awkward apologies as they left. Victor watched them go, his satisfaction tinged with bitterness. Diana's betrayal was now a public spectacle, and there was no escaping the consequences. While Diana stood shattered in the wreckage of her social life, Victor's next move targeted Alex directly. The party had been the beginning of the end for him. The fallout was already in motion, but Victor wasn't satisfied with just public humiliation. He wanted Alex ruined entirely. The incriminating information Victor had gathered about Alex's financial misconduct found its way into the hands of influential art collectors and gallery owners. Anonymous emails exposed Alex's fraudulent deals, falsified appraisals, and embezzlement from joint projects. Within days, whispers turned into outright accusations. A high-profile gallery, which had been on the verge of signing a lucrative partnership with Alex, publicly terminated all negotiations, citing concerns over his ethical standards. One by one, his other professional relationships collapsed. The art world, notorious for its exclusivity, turned its back on him. But Victor didn't stop there. He made sure that Alex's personal life wasn't spared. Through anonymous tips, Victor ensured Alex's wife, yes, Alex was married, received all the same damning evidence he'd revealed at the party. Pictures, emails, and videos landed in her inbox with a simple message. "He betrayed us both." Alex's wife, furious and humiliated, filed for divorce immediately, taking with her not only his personal stability but also a significant portion of his finances. With his career in tatters and his marriage destroyed, Alex found himself cornered. Victor finally reached out directly to Alex, sending a single text. "You thought you could take from me and walk away unscathed. You were wrong." Alex didn't respond. He didn't need to. The damage was done. For Victor, watching Alex's downfall provided a grim sense of satisfaction. The man who had brazenly betrayed him in his own home was now stripped of everything that mattered. But even as Alex's world crumbled, Victor couldn't ignore the gnawing emptiness that lingered. Revenge had been exacted, but at what cost? Victor set his sights on the next stage of his plan. Diana. Her punishment wasn't over yet. Diana sat alone in their bedroom, the aftermath of the party swirling around her like a storm she couldn't escape. Her phone buzzed relentlessly with messages from friends, colleagues, and family, but she couldn't bring herself to answer. The humiliation was too overwhelming. She replayed the events in her mind. Victor's calm voice, the images and videos flashing on the screen, the cold, calculating look in his eyes as he exposed her. For the first time, she understood the depth of his pain and his capacity for vengeance. This wasn't a momentary outburst of anger. Victor had planned this for weeks, meticulously weaving his revenge while she remained oblivious. Diana's thoughts turned to Alex, who had disappeared immediately after the party. She had tried calling him, but the calls went unanswered. She'd heard rumors through their shared contacts. His deals had fallen through, his reputation was in ruins, and his wife had left him. Diana felt a pang of guilt, but it was drowned out by her own despair. When Victor finally walked into the room that evening, his presence was chilling. He didn't speak at first, simply standing in the doorway, his arms crossed, his face a mask of controlled fury. Victor, Diana began, her voice trembling. Please let me explain. I made a mistake. A mistake, he interrupted, his voice sharp and cold. You call months of lies and betrayal a mistake? You brought him into our home, Diana. You destroyed everything we built together. Tears streamed down her face as she pleaded with him. I never meant to hurt you. I was lost,
No, Victor snapped.
You weren't lost. You were selfish. You wanted excitement, and you thought I wouldn't notice. Well, now everyone knows. Everyone has seen who you really are. Diana fell silent, the weight of his words crushing her. She realized there was no way to undo what she'd done. The life they had shared, the trust they had built, was gone. Victor's coldness made it clear this wasn't a fight they could recover from. Do you love him? Victor asked suddenly, his tone icy. No, she whispered, shaking her head. It wasn't about love. It was a distraction. Victor laughed bitterly. A distraction. Well, I hope it was worth it, because now you've lost everything. He turned to leave but paused at the door. We'll talk about the divorce papers tomorrow. Diana collapsed onto the bed, sobbing. The reality of her actions had finally sunk in. She had underestimated Victor, thinking she could deceive him and keep her life intact. Now, she was left with nothing but regret, and the cold certainty that she had destroyed the one person who had truly loved her. The morning after the party, Victor sat in his office, calm and focused. The storm in his mind had settled, replaced by a ruthless clarity. He wasn't just ending his marriage, he was ensuring Diana couldn't recover easily from her betrayal. Diana, pale and disheveled, cautiously approached him later that morning. She had barely slept, her mind consumed by the thought of losing everything. When she entered the room, Victor handed her a folder. Inside were divorce papers, meticulously prepared and filed in advance. I've been planning this for weeks, Victor said, his voice devoid of emotion. While you were sneaking around, I was securing my future and making sure you won't take it from me. Diana flipped through the documents, her hands trembling. The terms were brutal. Victor had moved most of their shared assets into accounts solely in his name. The house, their savings, and even the art gallery connections he had helped Diana build were effectively out of her reach. He had evidence of her infidelity and had ensured that no court would side with her. You're leaving me with nothing, she whispered, her voice breaking. You left me with nothing first, Victor replied coldly. This is just me returning the favor. But the gallery. You'll keep your job, he interrupted. I'm not petty enough to strip you of your career, but every connection you've made, every opportunity you've been given, came through me, and I've already made sure those bridges are burned. Diana stared at him in shock. You've destroyed me. No, Victor said, leaning forward. You destroyed yourself. I'm just finishing what you started. Before she could respond, Victor dropped another bombshell. Oh, and one more thing. The gallery board already knows about your affair. I sent them the same evidence I showed at the party. I doubt they'll fire you, but your reputation in the art world? That's another story. Diana's knees buckled, and she collapsed into a chair. Victor's revenge wasn't just calculated. It was devastating. He had stripped her of not only her marriage but also her professional credibility and social standing. As she sat there, tears streaming down her face, Victor rose and walked to the door. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the final details. Don't bother trying to fight this. You've already lost. With that, he left the room, leaving Diana alone to grapple with the full weight of his betrayal. A betrayal that mirrored her own, but delivered with surgical precision. The fallout from Victor's revenge spread far beyond just Diana and Alex. Friends, family, and colleagues were forced to take sides, dividing their once shared social circles. Whispers about the anniversary party circulated rapidly, painting Diana as a cheater and Alex as a manipulative opportunist. Diana's family reached out to Victor, pleading with him to reconsider the divorce. You've been together for so long, her mother said. You've built a life together. Surely there's a way to fix this. Victor's response was curt. You can't fix something that's already broken. Even those who initially sympathized with Diana grew distant as Victor's evidence spread. Pictures, videos, and damning details about her betrayal left little room for defense. Diana was ostracized at work, where whispers followed her through the gallery halls. Clients pulled out of deals, citing concerns about her integrity, and her carefully curated reputation crumbled. Meanwhile, Alex's situation went from bad to worse. Unable to recover from the professional and personal blows Victor had delivered, he tried to contact Diana for solace. He sent her desperate messages, begging her to meet him, but Diana ignored them. She blamed Alex for everything, seeing him as the spark that ignited the firestorm of her downfall. Victor, watching from a distance, felt a bitter sense of satisfaction. The people who had betrayed him were suffering, their lives unraveling just as they had unraveled his. But as days turned into weeks, a strange hollowness began to settle in his chest. He had won, but at what cost? The collateral damage extended to Victor himself. Friends who had once admired his sharp mind and calm demeanor now viewed him differently. Some called his revenge brilliant and justified, but others whispered about its cruelty. "Don't you think you went too far?" one friend asked over drinks. Victor shrugged. They deserved it. But late at night, alone in the quiet of his now empty home, Victor couldn't ignore the gnawing emptiness. He had dismantled Diana and Alex's lives, but in doing so, he had destroyed something within himself as well. The love he once cherished, the life he had built. It was gone, and no amount of revenge could bring it back. Victor tried to rebuild his life amidst the wreckage of the past. His tech company flourished, giving him a sense of purpose, but he often found himself distracted by memories of Diana and the life they had shared. Though he'd won his battle for justice, the victory felt hollow. Revenge had consumed him, leaving little room for anything else. One evening, while reviewing a new project at his company, Victor received an unexpected email. It was from Diana. He stared at the screen, debating whether to open it. Against his better judgment, he clicked. The email was short but heartfelt. "Victor, I know I can never undo what I did, and I won't try to justify it. You were right to leave me, and I deserve everything that happened. I've been trying to figure out how I became this person, and all I can say is that I'm sorry. For betraying you, for hurting you, for destroying what we had. I'll carry that guilt for the rest of my life. I hope someday you find happiness again. You deserve it." Victor read the email twice, his emotions swirling. He didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Her words didn't change what had happened, but they provided a strange sense of finality. In the following weeks, Victor threw himself into self-improvement. He began therapy, not to process the betrayal, but to understand why revenge had consumed him so completely. The sessions forced him to confront uncomfortable truths about himself. His pride, his need for control, and the walls he had built around his emotions. Gradually, Victor started to let go. He sold the house he had shared with Diana, moving into a sleek apartment downtown. He rekindled friendships he had neglected during his marriage and began traveling for leisure, finding solace in new experiences. Though the scars of betrayal remained, Victor realized they didn't define him. For the first time in months, he felt lighter, freer. Diana's chapter in his life was closed, and while it wasn't the ending he had envisioned, it was the one he had to accept. Victor learned that closure didn't come from destroying others. It came from rebuilding yourself. And so, step by step, he moved forward, leaving the shadows of the past behind. Months turned into a year, and life carried on for all involved. Victor had transformed his pain into growth, becoming a version of himself he hadn't imagined before. His company reached new heights, and he found joy in the little things. Early morning runs, spontaneous road trips, and evenings spent in quiet reflection. He no longer thought about revenge or the bitterness that once consumed him. Diana, on the other hand, struggled to rebuild. The fallout of her actions lingered, and her once thriving career had become stagnant. She lived a quieter life now, far removed from the social circles she once adored. Therapy helped her confront her choices and the emptiness that had led her to betray Victor. She found solace in small victories, volunteering at local art workshops and rediscovering her passion for creating rather than curating. Though the guilt never fully left her, she learned to carry it as a reminder of the person she never wanted to be again. Alex disappeared from their lives entirely. After losing his career and his marriage, he moved to another city, attempting to start fresh. He tried reaching out to Diana once more, but she refused to answer. She had learned her lesson about seeking solace in fleeting connections. For Alex, redemption seemed like a far-off dream. Victor eventually found love again, though it was nothing like his relationship with Diana. This new connection was slower, steadier, built on open communication and shared values. He remained cautious, but he also allowed himself to be vulnerable in ways he hadn't before. One day, while walking through an art gallery in a city he was visiting for work, Victor noticed a small painting tucked into a corner of the exhibition. It was abstract, filled with chaotic lines and vivid colors, yet there was something hauntingly familiar about it. The title card read, "Webs Unwoven" by Diana S. For a moment, Victor stood still, his mind swimming with memories. But instead of bitterness, he felt a sense of peace. Diana had found her way back to herself, just as he had. He smiled faintly and walked away, leaving the painting and the past behind him. Both of them had been broken, but in their own ways they had pieced themselves back together. Life moved on, as it always does, weaving new threads where old ones had frayed.